And while a new administration is now in office, it could be more of the same between the United States and Venezuela, as all signs indicate President Joe Biden will recognize opposition leader Juan Guaido as the interim president, while Nicolas Maduro actually remains in power. RT's Rachel Blevins is joining us now to discuss this with more detail. So Rachel, what is the latest from this brand new, hours-old Biden administration on Venezuela?
So Biden's nominee for Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, actually mentioned the future of U.S. relations with Venezuela during his Senate confirmation hearing. And that's when he said that they expect to continue to recognize Juan Guaido as the leader of Venezuela and to continue sanctions on the country. In fact, when he was talking about it, he said that the plan is to continue those sanctions against the Venezuelan government in an effort to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. And he is saying that now they will, quote, move to a more effectively target those sanctions, and they will consider more humanitarian aid for the civilians who are, of course, being targeted directly by those sanctions. And it was also interesting how during this hearing, he was talking about what he referred to as the U.S. needing to restore free and fair elections in Venezuela, which is exactly the same rhetoric that we've heard from the Trump administration.
Right. And obviously over the past year or so, when this started happening, that Juan Guaido proclaimed himself to be president, the Venezuelan people weren't actually behind him. Is there any indication that that's changing?
Well, the short answer to that is no. You know, there are Venezuelans who do not support Maduro, but they don't necessarily see Guaido as the answer to their problems. But that, of course, doesn't mean that the United States government doesn't see Guaido as the answer to their problems. So even though we've seen the Venezuelan people and the Venezuelan military continue to put their support behind Maduro, it appears that the U.S. is still going to continue its support for Guaido. And we have to remember that they have put a lot of funding into this one opposition leader. In fact, back in 2019, they gave him $52 million through USAID, and it looks like that is going to continue to be the path no matter what the Venezuelan people say moving forward.
And lastly, Rachel, on Trump's way out, it was kind of evident that he was still thinking about Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro. Did he leave some sort of a parting gift or anything behind?
Of course he did. In fact, one of his last acts was enacting new sanctions against Venezuela. And it's interesting because these sanctions are actually because they are accusing the country of not respecting the other sanctions that they already put in place. So we actually saw a statement from the Treasury Department in which they spoke out and they announced the new measures under the Office of Foreign Assets Control, which will target 3 individuals, 14 entities, and 6 vessels for their ties to a network attempting to evade U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector. Now we have to remember here that Venezuela is going to be remembered as one of the greatest frustrations of the Trump administration, because even though they enacted all of these sanctions, even though they put their full support behind Guaido and they called on all of their allies to put their full support behind him, Maduro is still very much in power. So now it just remains to be seen how the Biden administration is going to handle everything as they come into power.
Yeah, I have a feeling it will be more of the same. Rachel Blevins, thank you for that update.
Thank you.